there's only one thing that my grandmother said about, well, two things, I guess, my grandmother said about her experience. One was to a granddaughter of hers, and when they were just having this nice, peaceful time, and she was braiding her granddaughter's hair, and just remarked, just almost offhand, how sad it had made her that they cut her hair when she went to school. And it was just kind of like almost like a, yeah, just like an offhanded, almost like train of thought kind of remark. And that was the one thing about her experience that she ever shared, was that but that every single kid who went to residential school had their hair cut, because you know, the way that Indigenous people wear their hair, you know, back then and today in braids, like long hair in braids, it actually has like cultural relevance. It's not just you know, a hairstyle. It's like there's a significance to it. And so the residential school system, because its intent was to really destroy Indigenous identity, any connection that they could find to Indigenous identity, they severed that connection, you know, essentially. So if you think about, I think this is something where I think kids really understand. If you think about the things that tie you to who you are, like the things that really connect you to yourself and an understanding of who you are, you know, whether it's like, you know, your hairstyle or your clothing or your language or your family or your name, you know, all of that, the administrators, the staff, the government, the church, everyone involved with residential schools made very deliberate decisions to get rid of all of that from a child's life. So if you think about, you know, a child, and again, kids have this enormous ability for empathy. If you think about like a kid who does not have the ability to be with their family, does not have the ability to speak their language. So I think you have to think about the fact that you speak maybe one, like assuming you speak one language, and it's the language, you know, my dad spoke Cree only, for example. And if you're put into a situation where you're going to a school, and then you're made to learn in a foreign language, which would be English for him, and then having to learn not only the language, but then learn the subjects that the language that are being taught in that language. It's a, you know, really difficult, it's a difficult, you know, learning experience. And then just like, you know, the connections that you have to your culture through your dress and through your hair, and the things that you learn from your family about your identity, you know, all of those things, and your name, you know. It was either, so kids were either often given English names. So, you know, for example, my friend Wab, who's the politician here in Manitoba, his dad's name was Tabasanaquit. That was his Anishinaabe name, his real name. And then in residential school, they renamed him Peter Kelly instead of Tabasanaquit Canoe. And so, and then he only reclaimed that name a few years before he died. He went by Peter Kelly like almost his entire life. So that like indoctrination of like, you know, this kind of Western mindset, this Christian mindset, was something that really had a, you know, big impact on him and Wab. So so it was only later in life that he reclaimed his name, Tabasanaquit, and Wab's youngest son is named Tabasanaquit now, which is really nice. Anyway, so they were either, you know, given English names, or they were given numbers, which is like, there's not like, you know, there's not really a more dehumanizing thing than having your name taken away and being replaced by a number, you know. So you're like, you might have been, you know, number 27, and that's like, how, you know, how impersonal is that? You know, how, you know, to be just, you know, given it. Oh, do you have your hand up?
I was just gonna say, can I jump in with a comment?
Yeah.
Part? I feel bad cutting you off, but it's perfectly placed. Okay. It's perfectly placed in the story. And I'd meant to tell the kids this story last week and I forgot. I was very honored to be asked to be a volunteer. I'm going to get all the dates wrong, but I guess it was 2019 when there was the ceremony at the Museum of History here in Gatineau. I think it's called that, or they changed the name, to be a cloth bearer when they brought the big red cloth, and they had like thousands of names of children who had died at residential schools, but there had been records of them. So I think there was maybe like, I'm really bad with details, but 3,000 names on this list. Which kind of preceded this current situation of, you know, all these unnamed children being found now. So these kids, there were records of them, of these youth. But you're right, some of them had numbers. Most of them had English sounding names. But as I was reading through it, the most heartbreaking, devastating name I read, they had listed a child as Dummy Bad Boy on this cloth. And, you know, my thought was, like, that is so much worse than a number, actually, that like you took the time to, in someone's death, memorialize them like that, you know, and like the adults in charge should have known better to, like, that was just mean. That was like spiteful and especially mean. And yes.
Yeah, that's actually shocking. I can't actually believe that they would do that. Wow. Yeah.
It was very haunting. And sorry, I should have warned you.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, like that's like, you know, a kid. The thing that I think that we have to remember is that, especially as more graves are found, is that every single one of them is a kid, you know, but which is, I don't want to, you know, to traumatize or scare any kids. But like, yeah, I think it's important to keep in mind, because we can be desensitized because there's so many graves being found, and and the irony of it is that kids can become numbers again, right? Where, you know, then it's like, now there's over 1,600 graves that have been found. Every single one of those kids had a name, you know. It's, you know, it's yeah, it's really tough. Like,